Hi, everyone. This is Rob Roy, and welcome to this edition of the Hub Financial Crypto Show, where we talk about all things crypto with Mr. Brandon Burton. But before we get to the crypto world, take a look at what's going on in the market in general. Obviously, all eyes were on Jackson Hole last week and the Fed summit, and the Fed had some commentary that came out, and they always use code words. They never tell you who says what or how many are voting what. And they say several or vast majority were the two words that they used. The several came from the fact that a lot of the Fed governors would have voted for a rate cut in July had it come up, but the vast majority are in favor of a rate cut in September. And then Chairman Powell comes out on Friday and pretty much confirms we're going to get some sort of a rate cut at the September meeting. We don't know how much, we don't know how many by the end of the year, but things are getting ready to change towards the rate cut. I wonder if this is going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news, but the market seemed to like it at the end of the week, and we did move to the upside. Looking at the chart, you can see we're right up near this resistance area of the wave 5 high on the Elliott wave pattern from the July highs. And the question becomes, in my opinion, if we move above this level, if we can break above this wave 5 high, does this 5 move over? Can we make a new wave 5 high? Do we relabel the Elliott wave pattern in some way? Which I think is more likely, because if we take a look at the ADX, which is the indicator that I like to confirm the strength of Elliott wave moves, you can see the ADX, which is the black line there, just moving straight down. And from the time that we had the low on that Monday on the unwinding of the yen carry trade, we've pretty much gone straight up in the market, forming this traditional V bottom type look. And yet the ADX has given it no love at all as far as confirmation of strength to this move. So even if we do move to a new high, it seems like we're running out of steam, at least for the short term, as we move into that expected September rate cut. And then, of course, we have the election right after that. So I think some volatility is in order as we move towards the election. We take a look at the VIX. Not really telling us a whole lot at this point in time. We're right back into that range between 12.5 and 17.5, where we've been the majority of the year, other than the unwinding of the yen carry trade. So where we go from here is anybody's guess on the VIX, and it's not just telling us anything as far as where we go. We've had some movement in the metals, both gold and silver are moving back to the upside. You can see GLD moving up. I'm sure Brandon will have a little bit of commentary on crypto as far as in combination with what's happening in the metals, how they relate, etc. And then I did want to show you USO, because that's really where the news is in oil with the unrest over in the Middle East. We had this downside breakout. We had this big, huge triangle, and we had the downside breakout here when it looked like there was going to be ceasefire talks. And then they kind of went away and like, nah, I don't think we're going to have a ceasefire. In fact, we've escalated the unrest over in the Middle East. And now we're waiting to see if Iran is going to retaliate against Israel, knocking off the head of Hamas. And so now we're wondering how high we can go in USO. There's been some forecasts that we move as high as 85 on USO, but that's a big gap up today. So we're going to be a bit overbought in oil short term, but the next couple of days will tell us with what's going on in the Middle East. At least that's the expectation. So we could have any sort of a move. If the unrest escalates, oil goes higher. If we start having ceasefire talks again, oil goes right back down. So it's pretty volatile. And even though we did have the triangular breakout, we're right back to the point of it. So it's right back to square one. Anything could happen from here. So that's a little bit of a roundup of what's going on in the markets in general. And the Fed speak. The number of rate cuts, in my opinion, is just going to be on how the economic data appears over the next several weeks, because we don't have a meeting here in August. We have to wait till that September meeting. So let's bring in Mr. Brandon Burton. How are you today, Brandon?
Oh, Rob, the economy's so bad, and I don't know why they can't admit it. It's actually way worse than anybody in Washington thinks. They revised that jobs report down, 818,000 jobs? Like, in what world is that okay for them to come out and blatantly lie to us? And for some reason, somebody inside the White House says, hey, we ought to tell the Americans the truth. They just like we finally. Well, I think we better own up. I think they're going to try to hide it till past the election, and it was so bad they couldn't even hide it till past the election. So this kind of stuff
Well,
happening all the time, and it's like, oh, Rob, what?
Well, I think there's two things. One, well, there's three things. One, it's backward looking, right? So the jobs market is worse than what's being reported, and then they cover it up by adding a whole bunch of government jobs. So you have to look at just the private sector report to really get an idea of what's going on in the jobs market. But I'm with you, and we've been talking about this for the last few weeks. I really think the Fed could be late to the party here on cutting rates, and they've missed the boat. And the bond market has just been screaming of this, and the equities market just completely ignores it. But my
Yeah,
experience has said never ignore what the bond market's telling you. So I do think I totally agree with you that things are a bit worse than what's being reported, and I think that's being evidenced in the fact that the confirming indicators on this move higher in the market are just showing there's just no strength to it. So I think
yeah.
caution is warranted, but we're all in happy land with the market with rate cuts coming. But let's see what happens when they get here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's interesting to watch how there's a better way though. I mean, there's got to be a better way than us trusting what they're saying. It's just I feel like we're sheep being led into the slaughter kind of half the time, and we're just going with the whims of whatever these regulators want to hand out. So we're just taking scraps, at any point in the game. Or there's a better way. We could move into a decentralized world where we vote with governance and we play part of the crypto universe, which that's obviously, as you know, what I like. And I don't know if you saw this last week. We had a pretty big week. A lot happened in the sphere of crypto that was very important, both good and bad. And I can tell you kind of both sides of the tail here. The first one being obviously you saw the RFK they met over. This was just after the DNC. They had their whole conference and stuff. RFK met and he had his own press conference where he announced that he was going to endorse Mr. Donald President Trump. And he came out and he said this, and it was actually a fairly good talk. It was about 45 minutes. If you haven't seen it, go watch this thing. But he went and he explained why he was going to endorse President Trump, how the Democratic Party's falling apart and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but why is that important for Bitcoin? And why did we have such a huge candle? I'll show you the charts here in just a second. Why did we have such a huge candle at Bitcoin? That's because RFK, he believes in Bitcoin. During his keynote speech at the Bitcoin conference about a month ago, he wanted to propose that the US Treasury buy $4 million worth of Bitcoin over the course of 5 years. I think this would be about 550 Bitcoin per day. This would give the US Treasury an option to add Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So, of course, he's all on board with Bitcoin. And so that moved the markets this week. But why are we not catapulting higher? Like just you mentioned gold, right? So every time M2 money supply picks up, gold also tracks with that. It kind of picks up. Bitcoin should be doing the same thing, but you see it languishing. You see it kind of falling back. And there's some political reasons for that I'll get into here at the end of this that I kind of actually want to discuss with you, Rob. But after RFK, he went ahead and he presented his case. He's going to go ahead and endorse Donald Trump. Bitcoin jumped almost 10% in that one candle, that one day. So it was pretty gargantuan. But then over the weekend, we got news from the EU. Obviously, before Donald Trump met with Elon Musk to do his interview, the EU threatened him, said, "Hey, remember all our rules, yardy yardy." But guess what just happened over the weekend? We had Mr. Pavel, the CEO of Telegram. He just barely he got he got arrested in France, obviously, right? So he got arrested, and they released his charges. They don't know why he got arrested, but he's the owner. He's not just the CEO, but I think he owns all of Telegram. He's pretty well-to-do guy, but they arrested him for basically creating Telegram. And if you don't know what Telegram is, it's basically a messaging app, but there's a lot of activities that go on in Telegram that are not great. Obviously, there could be people communicating back and forth one with another. So he got arrested because he owns the app where these activities take place, which makes literally no sense unless he's directly involved. I guess we'll find out, but I don't think it makes any sense. And this is important because we saw Toncoin, which is Telegram open network coin, fell 20% on this news. Now, in crypto, this actually isn't that much. If you remember all the way back to XRP actually got demolished when the SEC came out and said, hey, you guys are toast. You guys are security, blardy, blardy. XRP dropped huge. So this drop in 20% actually isn't that even that big deal. Back in August 5th, it was at this level, the same thing. But Coin took a hit just because of this and this whole news. But obviously, all this stuff is kind of correlated in the market. The reason that crypto cannot escalate freely is because of government intervention and regulation, which is, and let me go ahead and take you to my chart now. This is the chart of Bitcoin. We notice on the chart here, and when we look at this chart, we see this is the big candle right here. This is when RFK Jr. decided he was going to endorse Trump. Trump said, hey, I got a position for you on the cabinet. You're going to come help me with some stuff. So that's what was happening over here. And so that's a huge jump, obviously. But then, obviously, after that happened, Bitcoin kind of traded sideways for a couple of days, and now you see it's kind of drifting off. And the reason being, Kamala and Donald Trump are neck and neck in the race for president. We still don't know which one's going to win. And until November, this is going to be kind of a stalemate, especially going into late summer. As we go into September, October, typically things would work and move on to the upside, which I think it still will, but still at a subdued pace until we find out that Donald Trump is going to be elected president, or Kamala comes out and actually tells us what's going on with her pivot in crypto that she promised. And so far, the pivot has been absolutely nothing since she's decided to retain all the same staff that Biden has on his side. So we'll kind of see how this plays out. But what I have been watching this week, and Rob, and I kind of want you to step in here on this and kind of help me out with a couple of maybe some background story on this, is I've been watching the AI tokens this week. So there's an AI token called, let me see if I can pull this up here. It's called Fetch. Okay. So and we've talked about this before. This is on the, oh my gosh, the 22nd. What was that? 4 days ago? 4 days ago. This thing was sitting around 80 cents. Now it's at $1.32 today. So this thing has jumped about 65% in 4 days. And this isn't the only AI coin. Fetch is a coin that has artificial agents that go out there in the world and they start doing stuff for you artificially and stuff. You don't have to do anything anyway. You give these agents autonomy to do stuff. Anyway, it's jumped about 65% in the last 4 days. And we all got on board with this over at Digital Investor. And so we're all in Fetch. And so we're doing pretty fine. But we believe the reason is Nvidia earnings are coming up this week. And I don't know if, Rob, if you have a chance to pull up the Nvidia chart there, I would like you to take a look at that and tell me what's going to be happening on earnings this week, because I would like to play that in tandem with some of these AI plays. And if you notice just from this move here, 65%, these are going to move a lot more than Nvidia is going to move. So what's Nvidia looking like over there, Rob?
Nvidia is in a trading range. I was just looking at that earlier. We even did a Pro Trader tips on it with the earnings report, which is on the 28th. So you're right, it's coming up here in a couple days. There's a 7.8% move priced in the options on Nvidia, and on average, Nvidia moves 8%. So basically, the average movement is already priced in. So Nvidia would have to outpace its expected move, and I think it's expected to have a 126% increase. Or it's a pretty tall order on what Nvidia is going to do on its earnings report. So a lot of times when you have a stock that tends to move on earnings, putting on a straddle or strangle is a play that can work, but it would have to be an outsized move. So it's going to have to move 10% or more on its earnings report, which it may do for one of those to work. But to answer your question, it's locked in a trading range right now between 120 and call it 140. So to trade Nvidia, I think is better to let the earnings report come out, see if they can just blow it away, break out this high from June. If it does, then I think Nvidia is off to the races. I think it's a new bull run in Nvidia. But if it breaks down below 120, we could be looking at a test down around 100. So I think that there's a trade to make on Nvidia, but I'm not so sure it's going into earnings. I think the better trade is let the earnings report happen and then move out from there. I had heard some of those AI coins. I was actually going to ask you about it, but you beat me to the punch. So That's quite interesting to see. And I did see that news about RFK. They, I guess, debated about whether he was going to stay in the race, but then he felt like if he did, it wasn't realistic for them to win, and that it would ensure Kamala would win. And since RFK didn't want that, he put his support behind Trump to see if they could. I also wanted to ask you something while we're talking about the government interest in Bitcoin, et cetera. And I've heard that, and this is going back a ways. I actually haven't heard anything about it lately, but there has been talk when Bitcoin really started taking off that the Federal Reserve was going to create their own crypto. And then that's where they were going to direct things moving forward. But I haven't heard anything about that lately. And it does seem like the government is warming, at least in some aspects of it, towards Bitcoin. Are you familiar with any of the conversation regarding the Federal Reserve having their own crypto, and that's what's going to replace the U.S. dollar in the years to come?
Yeah, the CBDC. So basically, they wanted to create their own central bank digital currency. Now, this is something that it got shut down. I mean, this isn't something
Okay.
anybody wants. They voted against this in the Senate or in the House, and I think in the Senate as well. They voted against this, and this isn't something Donald Trump will never push for. He's explicitly said this. He doesn't want a CBDC. He doesn't want the government to create their own token. I mean, that is basically just as frivolous as them printing their own dollars. So it
Yeah.
loses all value of being a crypto asset. Piggybacking off of Bitcoin is the only way forward for the government to participate in crypto and to be able to utilize maybe Ethereum and a couple of these other blockchains to utilize the smart contract technology. That's the only way. Them creating their own currency is just them creating their own currency for digital currency's sake, basically. So nobody wants this, including the House and including the Senate. So I mean, that did get tossed out there. You're right, but I think that got shut down pretty hard. And if Kamala tries to bring that up, she's going to just get ramrodded. So it's going to be whatever. So we'll see what she
I
does.
wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't try to bring it up. But you're right. It is six of one, half a dozen of the other. Because if the Federal Reserve is still controlling it, what's the difference? The idea of moving to Bitcoin is going back to something that has a limited supply and taking us back to the days when we were on the gold standard. We had a limited supply of dollars, and that's about the only way we're ever going to get our fiscal house in order. So if we allowed the Federal Reserve, when if the government allowed it, then it serves no purpose. So glad to
Yeah.
hear you say that. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see. We want to be decentralized. We want the government to not have control. I think that's what we need to move towards as far as a world currency. And Bitcoin could be that answer, or some variation of Bitcoin. Now, Kamala. I mean, I wish she would either educate herself or have her staff help educate. Supposedly, she reached out to Mark Cuban for education. Not the person you should reach out to for education in any of these in any of this. So big fail at that point. So far she has not proved to show that she's actually willing to learn about crypto or give any confidence to the crypto investors that she's actually going to pivot to a more pro crypto stance, regardless of what Chuck Schumer and the rest of their Democrats actually want her to do. So we'll see how this kind of plays out. But that's honestly the only basically the only pressure that I see on crypto right now is what's happening right now in the political scene. Everything else all green lit. So regarding what we're doing over at Digital Investor, obviously, is we're trying to help people learn how to navigate this space and how to achieve and get the knowledge to be able to move their crypto around, to stake their crypto, to open up wallets, to be able to use the utility of the blockchain like it should be used. And so we're trying to create this digital investor university so that everybody can get involved with crypto. I think there's a lot of fear. And I might ask you, Rob, but like what helped you overcome and take your first steps into crypto? Because I think there's a lot of fear in getting into crypto because it is kind of new territory. It's the Wild West. And there was a lot of negative stigma with it. I mean, even 4 years ago, I think now the landscape's changed so much since the ETFs have gotten involved. But what was your first step into crypto, Rob? What made you push the button?
Honestly, you're right. I did have a fear of it. I didn't see the vision for it moving forward when it first came out, and I was late to the party to speak, and so to speak. And yeah, it was because honest answer is lack of knowledge. I really didn't fully understand it, and so I wasn't very knowledgeable on it. And the more I learned about it, the more I started to embrace it. So going to places like you and getting educated on it. And then I do like your mantra of moving around in the crypto space. Excuse me. And that's why I always like having you on and talking about the AI coin. By the way, that chart has a nice zigzag in it. I don't think that chart's done going up. The one you were showing, the AI based crypto. And just in case, because I do kind of think that Kamala is jawboning a little bit just to try to calm the crypto people down and maybe get some of those votes. I don't think that they're going to embrace it at all if they win. I think it just goes away, and you're going to have to look for other places, maybe, or maybe Bitcoin can go on without their support. I don't know, but other governments can pick up the mantle and carry them if they want to. If we're not going to, but I just don't buy into there's going to be any support on a Democratic win in November towards Bitcoin. So you're going to look for other areas like what you just showed, and there's other places other than just Bitcoin itself in order to participate and generate gains in the crypto world. So once again, it's why I like chatting with you in these sessions to see what else is going on. So I think you're on to something. I just wanted to come back to one last thing on the question that you asked me about Nvidia. I just feel like even though we're in a wave 5 to the upside pattern here, we got to let it break above that wave 3 high. And if it can do that on earnings, then yeah, I think Nvidia is off to the races. And is that supportive of Bitcoin? Is that what you're saying? Is that why you were asking about it, or is that more supportive of the AI based crypto coins?
So this would just be a short term kind of what we're watching for the AI play for the AI tokens. We're talking fetch, render, maybe a couple other ones that might try to fall under that umbrella that have been moving lately. So we're watching those really closely, and we'll try to see if those kind of break to the upside closer into Tuesday evening. And then honestly, I'm a long term holder in some of these tokens, so I'm just going to hold them regardless. But it's interesting to watch how they start to trade in tandem with these news events. So.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I think I think Fetch has a little more to go on this one run, and then we'll see from there because that chart you showed with the pullback is just a classic B wave correction, and then should have a little bit more extension over the next day or two, and then we find out from there once that pattern completes. But looks like a little more upside there to me just from the chart reading. Certainly don't have
Yeah.
the background in it that
Yeah, we'll
that you
see.
do.
I
So,
mean, it's down. I mean, it's down 70% off its high 2 months ago. So we'll see how this thing plays out. These things move quick, and obviously, it's
yeah,
still up over the last year. I mean, 1,000%. So it's doing well from that. But I mean, these things move all over the place. But anyway, I appreciate you letting me come on today, Rob. It's been good as always to hear your voice and to hear your
yeah.
thoughts on the market. So it's been great.
Pleasure's always, Brandon, and always like hearing your little insights that you have that I'm not aware of. So, like we were talking about with Fetch, et cetera. So, we all have a lot to talk about going into the election, won't we? And then certainly coming out of the election, certainly going to be a volatile time in the crypto world, I would think, over the next few months. So, it's going to be exciting to see how things play out.
Yeah, I think so as well. We'll watch this, and I look forward to meeting with you next week here.
Yep, same here. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care,
Yep. We'll see
everybody.
you.